Imagine a world where saying I love you out loud could ruin your reputation forever. A world where a woman's voice was silenced by etiquette and her deepest desires had to be hidden behind layers of silk and lace. In the strict ballrooms of Victorian England, you couldn't speak freely, you couldn't touch, you couldn't even look at someone for too long without causing a scandal. But humans are ingenious creatures. When society took away their words, they found another way to speak. They didn't use ink and they didn't use whispers. They used a fan. Tonight, we open the pages of this secret dictionary. Welcome to the silent, dangerous, and beautiful world of Victorian flirtation. The year is 1855. It is a Tuesday evening in London, deep in the heart of the season. The air outside is thick with the soot of coal fires and the damp chill of the Thames. But inside the residence of the Duchess of Claremont, the world is golden. You are standing at the top of a grand staircase. The heavy velvet curtains have been drawn against the night. Hundreds of beeswax candles burn in crystal chandeliers overhead, casting a soft, flattering light that makes the jewelry of the guests sparkle like captured stars. The heat in the room is rising, carrying the scent of house flowers, jasmine, gardenia, and heavy roses, mixed with the faint powdery smell of expensive perfumes. You are young, perhaps 18, making your debut into society. You are wearing a gown of pale blue silk, stiff with petticoats that rustle like dry leaves with every step you take. Swish, swish. The corset around your waist holds you upright, rigid and poised. It is a cage, yes, but it is a beautiful one. Your hands are encased in white kid gloves that button all the way to the elbow. But your most important possession is not your dress nor your jewels. It is the object hanging from a silk ribbon at your wrist, a fan. It seems like such a simple thing, slats of carved ivory backed with painted silk, edged in delicate lace, a tool to move the air, to cool a flushed cheek in a crowded room. But you know better. Your mother taught you. Your sisters taught you. This is not just a fan. It is a shield. It is a weapon. It is a voice. Tonight, the ballroom is a battlefield of glances. Gentlemen in stark black tailcoats line the walls like rooks on a chessboard. They stand with their hands clasped behind their backs, their expressions guarded. They are watching, assessing. You begin to descend the stairs. The music has started, a slow, sweeping waltz that vibrates through the floorboards. The violins sing a melancholy tune, rising and falling like the chest of a sleeping lover. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You reach the bottom of the stairs. The room is a sea of movement. Couples are spinning in the center of the floor, a kaleidoscope of satin and wool. The noise is a low hum of polite conversation, the clinking of champagne glasses, the soft laughter that never gets too loud. Across the room, you see him. He is standing near a pillar, holding a glass of punch he hasn't touched. He is looking at you. Not staring, that would be rude, but his gaze is fixed, steady, and intense. He cannot walk over and simply tell you that you look beautiful. He cannot confess that he has been thinking of you since last Thursday. There are chaperones everywhere. The older women, the dragons of society, are sitting on the sidelines, their sharp eyes missing nothing. If he speaks too freely, you will be ruined. So he waits for a sign. Your heart beats a little faster against the whalebone of your corset. You feel a flush rising to your neck. You need to tell him that you see him. You need to tell him to come closer, but you cannot speak. Slowly, deliberately, you lift your right hand. You take the fan. You do not open it, not yet. You hold the closed fan and touch it gently to your right cheek. It is a tiny movement. To the uneducated eye, it looks like a moment of contemplation. Maybe you were just cooling your skin. Maybe you were tired. The chaperones scan past you, noticing nothing. But he notices. His eyes widen slightly. He takes a small breath. Carrying the fan in the right hand in front of the face, it means, follow me. A thrill runs through you. The message has been sent. The connection is made. The silent conversation has begun. You turn away, moving towards the edge of the ballroom where the French doors lead out to the terrace. You do not look back. You don't have to. You can feel his presence moving through the crowd behind you, drawn by the invisible spin you just spun with a piece of ivory and silk. This is the power you hold in your hand. In a world that demands your silence, you have found a way to scream. As you walk, you let the fan drop to your side, letting it dangle for a moment. You're teasing now. You reach the open doors. The cool night air hits your face, a welcome relief from the stifling heat of the dance floor. You step out onto the stone terrace. It is shadowed here, the moonlight obscured by passing clouds. You wait. You hear footsteps, heavy, deliberate steps on the stone. He is here, but you are not ready to surrender just yet. The game is too fun. You turn to face him. He is standing a few feet away, obscured by the darkness. He bows, formal and stiff. "Good evening," he says. His voice is low, strained with the effort of maintaining propriety. You do not answer with words. Instead, you slowly, agonizingly slowly, unfurl the fan. Snap. The sound is sharp in the quiet night. You open it wide. You hold it with both hands, covering your face, leaving only your eyes visible.
He freezes. He knows this code too. Every gentleman learns it, just as every soldier learns the bugle calls of war. Open wide, covering the lower face. It means, "I love you." Or does it? Wait. You shift your hands slightly. You tilt the fan. You are looking at him over the top of the edge. No, that wasn't "I love you." That was half opened. You are drawing the fan across your cheek. It means, "I am engaged." Panic flashes in his eyes. He takes a step back. The cruelty of the game, the power of the misunderstanding. You lower the fan, smiling a small, secret smile. You were just testing him. You close the fan shut with a sharp click. Click. You draw it through your hand. It means, "I hate you." No, that's not right either. You drop the fan to your side. We are watched. You glance towards the door. A chaperone has appeared in the archway, her silhouette large and imposing. She is scanning the terrace. Quickly, you twirl the fan in your left hand. We are being watched. He understands instantly. He steps back into the shadows, disappearing as if he were never there. You turn to the chaperone, feigning innocence, fanning yourself languidly, as if the only thing on your mind is the heat of the evening. "Just getting some air, Aunt," you say. The chaperone grunts, suspicious but seeing no crime. She ushers you back inside. You walk back into the light, your heart pounding. You didn't say a word to him, not one syllable of affection. And yet, in those 3 minutes on the terrace, a whole romance was written, tested, and saved. You look down at the fan in your hand. It looks so innocent, just pretty painted flowers on silk. But you know the truth. It is the keeper of your secrets. It is the only freedom you have. And the night? The night is still young. A language without words is a dangerous thing. It leaves no paper trail. It cannot be overheard by gossip mongers or stern aunts. It exists only in the moment, a fleeting signal that vanishes as soon as the wrist turns. But like any language, it had to be learned. You didn't just pick up a fan and start speaking. You had to study the grammar of seduction. Before a young woman could break a heart, she had to master the tool. Tonight, we move from the ballroom floor to the quiet boudoir where the lessons began. Let us open the dictionary of the fan. Imagine it is the morning before the ball. The heavy velvet curtains are pulled back, letting the gray London light filter into the dressing room. The air smells of lavender water and starch. You are standing before a tall, oval mirror, its silvered glass reflecting a serious expression. In your hand is your practice fan. It is not the expensive silk one you will take to the ball tonight. This one is simpler, perhaps made of varnished wood or stiff paper,
but the weight is the same. The balance is the same. Your French governess stands behind you, her eyes sharp, watching your reflection. "Again," she whispers. "Too fast. You look desperate." A lady is never desperate. She is bored. You sigh, resetting your posture. You straighten your spine. You lower your shoulders. You lift the fan. This was the reality for thousands of young women. The language of the fan was not just a game, it was a necessary education. In a society where women were often treated like decorative objects, the fan turned them into operators. It gave them agency. Let us look closely at this tool. Imagine holding it in your hand right now. Feel the smooth, cool texture of the mother-of-pearl handle. Run your thumb over the ridges of the folded slats. It is light, yet it commands attention. The language was built on placement, speed, and direction. Let us begin with the basics, the yes and the no. In the chaotic noise of a party, a gentleman might ask, "May I have the next dance?" Or perhaps something bolder, like, "May I call upon you tomorrow?" You cannot shout your answer over the music. Instead, you use the fan. If you rest the fan against your right cheek, simply letting it touch the skin for a heartbeat, it means yes. Think of the elegance of that. A slight tilt of the head, the cool ivory touching the warm flush of the cheek. It is an invitation. It is soft. But if you rest the fan against your left cheek, it means no, a barrier, a wall. The left side is the side of rejection. It is polite, but final. Now imagine you are sitting on a velvet sofa on the edge of the dance floor. A man you dislike, perhaps the one with the loud laugh and the bad debts, is approaching you. You want him to go away, but you cannot be rude. What do? You hold the fan in your left hand and twirl it, round and round. Swish, swish. The motion creates a small vortex of air. It is a signal that says, "We are being watched," or more pointedly, "Keep your distance." But what if it's the man you like, the one with the kind eyes? You want him to encourage him. You want him to cross the room. You take the fan in your right hand and carry it in front of your face, not covering it, just holding it there, like a veil waiting to be lifted. This is the command, "Follow me." The speed of the fan was its own dialect. Close your eyes and listen to the sound of a fan opening. Snap! A sharp, loud crack. This was not accidental. A fan opened wide and fast was a sign of temper. It meant the lady was angry, frustrated, or demanding attention. It was a thunderclap in a quiet room. Contrast this with a slow, languid unfurling. Slide, click, the slats opening one by one. This was sensuality. It meant, "I am waiting." There were signals for every stage of a romance. If you touched the tip of the fan with your finger, looking directly at a gentleman, you were saying, "I wish to speak with you." If you drew the fan across your forehead, wiping away imaginary perspiration, you were warning him, "We are watched. Be careful." And if you drew the fan through your hand, sliding the silk against your palm, it was the cruelest message of all, "I hate you." But the most dangerous signal, the one that caused scandals, it was the dropped fan. If a lady accidentally let her fan slip from her fingers and fall to the floor, it was not clumsiness, it was a challenge. If the gentleman picked it up and returned it to her, the ritual was complete. To drop the fan meant, "We will be friends," but in the Victorian code, friends often meant something much more intimate than the word implies today. These signals were printed in small booklets by fan manufacturers, marketing genius disguised as romance. Shops like Du Villeroy in Paris or London sold fans with little instruction cards. They knew that if they turned an accessory into a communication device, every woman would need one, and every woman did. By the mid-19th century, the ballroom was alive with this silent chatter. Look around the room in your mind's eye. Over there, by the punch bowl, a woman in red is fanning herself slowly, back and forth, back and forth. Do you know what she's saying? I am married. The slow rhythm suggests contentment, stability, no need to rush. But near the window, a young girl in white is fanning herself fast. Her wrist is flickering like a hummingbird's wing. Flutter, flutter, flutter. She's saying, I am engaged, or perhaps, I am unavailable. The nervous energy acts as a shield. It's a dizzying conversation, isn't it? A room full of hundreds of people, all talking, yet no one is saying a word. The air is thick with secrets. As you stand before your mirror in the morning light, practicing these moves, you realize the power you hold. You can summon a man, reject him, confess your love, or ruin his evening, all with a flick of the wrist. You close the practice fan. Click. You are ready. You place it on the dressing table. Tonight, you will take the silk one. Tonight, you will speak.
Before a fan could speak the language of love in a London ballroom, it had to travel thousands of miles and survive hundreds of years. It did not begin as a fashion accessory for English ladies. It began as a whisper in the East. They say the idea for the folding fan came from a bat's wing, nature's perfect design for moving air with silence. Tonight, we leave the noisy parties of the 19th century and drift back in time. We will sail across oceans, visit the quiet workshops of Kyoto, and watch as a simple tool becomes the crown jewel of Europe. Let us trace the ghost of the fan. To understand the weight of the fan in your hand, you must first forget about England. You must close your eyes and imagine a much quieter place. The year is timeless. We are in ancient Japan. The air is humid, filled with the sound of cicadas and the trickling of water. For centuries, fans were rigid. They were round, flat paddles made of silk stretched over a frame, known as uchiwa. They were beautiful, yes, but they were not convenient. You could not hide them in a sleeve. You could not snap them shut to make a point. Legend tells us that a Japanese craftsman, watching a bat flying in the twilight, noticed how the creature folded its wings tight against its body when it rested and expanded them wide when it needed to fly. Open, close, open, close, a perfect mechanism of ribs and skin. Inspired by this, the sensu, the folding fan, was born. It was an engineering marvel disguised as art. Thin strips of cypress wood threaded together, holding a semicircle of paper. It was portable, it was private, and for a long time it stayed in the East. But objects, like people, have destinies. In the 16th century, the great wooden ships of the Portuguese traders began to cut through the waves of the Indian Ocean, rounding the Cape of Good Hope, their holds filled with spices, porcelain, and curious folded things from Japan and China. Imagine the smell of those crates when they were pried open on the docks of Lisbon or Venice, the scent of camphor wood, dried tea leaves, and lacquer. When the folding fan first arrived in Europe, it was not cheap, it was a miracle. The Europeans had never seen anything like it. A painting that could vanish into a stick? It was magic. It was Catherine de' Medici, the Italian noblewoman who became the Queen of France, who is often credited with making the fan essential. When she arrived in Paris, she brought with her perfumes, poisons, and fans. Suddenly, to hold a fan was to hold power. By the time we reached the era of Queen Elizabeth I in England, the fan had transformed. It was no longer just cypress wood and paper. It had become a treasury of the world's most precious materials. Let us drift into a workshop in the 18th century to see how these objects were made. This is the boring part of history, the slow, rhythmic work of hands that creates beauty. Making a single fan required the work of 20 different people. It was a symphony of specialization. First, there was the stick maker. He sat at a bench covered in dust, white dust from ivory, shimmering dust from mother of pearl, or the dark, rich dust of tortoiseshell. He had to be precise. If the sticks were too thick, the fan would be heavy. If they were too thin, they would snap. He polished them until they felt like cool water against the skin. Then the sticks were sent to the carver.
Using tools as fine as needles, the carver would bore holes into the ivory, creating lace patterns out of solid bone. He worked in silence, his breath slow, his hand steady. One slip and a week's work was ruined. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, the painter was working on the leaf, the folded part of the fan. The leaf was made of vellum, fine calfskin, or silk, or even chicken skin, a very specific, delicate leather that was incredibly strong. The painter did not paint big, bold strokes. He painted miniatures, tiny shepherds and shepherdesses, little cupids, no flowers no bigger than a freckle. He used brushes made of a single mink hair. Dab, dab, swirl. Finally, the mounter brought it all together. This was the most difficult step, pleating the silk or vellum so perfectly that the painting would not crack when folded. The leaf had to disappear between the sticks, hiding its secrets until it was opened. Why go to all this trouble? Why spend months making a tool just to move air? Because in the courts of Europe, hands were a problem. What do you do with your hands when you are standing in a royal court for hours? Do you clasp them? Do you let them hang by your sides? The fan solved this. It gave a lady something to hold. It gave her posture. It gave her a prop. By the time we reached the era of Queen Elizabeth I in England, the fan industry was massive. Paris and London were churning out thousands of them. They were fans for the morning, simple cotton, fans for the afternoon, painted silk, and fans for the evening, ostrich feathers and sequins. There were even mourning fans, black crepe and jet beads, because even in grief, a Victorian lady had to be fashionable. So, when our young lady in Part 1 picked up her fan to signal her lover, she wasn't just holding a stick. She was holding the legacy of Japanese monks, Portuguese sailors, French queens, and ivory carvers. She was holding a history of global trade compressed into 12 inches of wood and lace. It is heavy with history, yet light as a feather. Can you feel the weight of it in your hand? The cool ribs of the ivory, the soft tickle of the silk edge. It is waiting for you to open it. Snap.
Romance is a game for beginners. For the young debutante, the fan is a tool of invitation, a way to ask, "Do you love me?" But for the married woman, the diplomat's wife, or the watchful chaperone, the fan serves a much darker purpose. It becomes a shield against prying eyes, a mirror to watch enemies, and a vault for dangerous secrets. In the high-stakes world of European courts, a fan could do more than break a heart. It could topple a government. Tonight, we enter the forbidden zone, where the fan is no longer a toy, but a weapon of silence. Let us move away from the center of the ballroom, where the young couples are spinning in the light. Let us move to the edges, to the velvet chairs lined up against the wall. This is the domain of the chaperones. These are the mothers, the aunts, the dowager countesses. They are dressed in heavy silks of dark purple, midnight blue, and black. They do not dance, they watch, and in their hands they hold a different kind of fan. These fans are not the delicate white lace things of the debutantes. These are large, imposing fans made of dark ostrich feathers or heavy black painted silk. When a chaperone opens her fan, it is not a flutter, it is a barricade. Whoomp! The sound of heavy feathers displacing air. The chaperone uses her fan like a judge uses a gavel. If she sees her charge dancing too close to a gentleman, she does not shout. She simply snaps her fan shut with a sharp, dry crack. Clack! The sound cuts through the music. The young couple hears it. They separate instantly. Order is restored without a word being spoken. But the chaperones have their own language too, a telegraph system across the room. Watch the elderly woman in the corner. She catches the eye of another chaperone across the dance floor. She tilts her fan to the right, angling it towards a specific couple. She raises an eyebrow. The other woman nods and slowly lowers her fan. A silent conversation has just taken place. That man has no fortune. Do not let your niece accept the next dance. Biographies, bank accounts, and scandals are exchanged in the tilt of a wrist.
But there was a use for the fan even more intriguing than gossip: espionage. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Europe was a web of political intrigue. Diplomats, spies, and kings met at balls and operas, and where there are secrets, there are people trying to steal them. The fan makers, always ingenious, created the ultimate tool for the spy: the peephole fan. Imagine a beautiful fan painted with a scene of a pastoral landscape, sheep grazing, a castle in the distance. But if you look closely, very closely at the artwork, you will see something strange. Hidden within the painted foliage, or perhaps inside the carved ivory guard stick, there is a tiny circular piece of transparent glass. Sometimes it is a lens. A lady holding this fan could hold it up to her face, pretending to hide a yawn or shield her eyes from the glare of the chandelier. To the observer, she is merely demure, but from her side, she is looking right through the fan. She is watching the lips of the ambassador standing across the room. She is reading the letter being opened by the general. She is a surveillance camera in a ball gown. Then there was the mirror fan. This was even more subtle. A small slip of silvered glass, no bigger than a coin, embedded in the outer stick of the fan. Why? To see behind you. A woman could stand with her back to a room, seemingly admiring a painting on the wall. She holds her fan casually at her shoulder. In the tiny mirror, she watches the reflection of the doorway. She sees who enters. She sees who leaves together. She collects the intelligence without ever turning her head. And what of the secrets carried inside the fan? We often think of the fan as a tool for signaling, but it was also a container. Double-lined fans were created with a hidden pocket between the two sheets of silk. A small note, folded until it was no thicker than a petal, could be slipped inside. Imagine the scene: a crowded salon in Paris. The air is thick with cigar smoke and politics. A woman walks past a man. She drops her fan. He picks it up. In that split second, his thumb presses a hidden catch on the handle. The compartment opens. He slips a tiny piece of paper inside. He snaps it shut. He hands the fan back to her with a bow. "Your fan, madame." "Thank you, monsieur." The transaction is complete. Plans for a treaty, a location for a duel, or the name of a traitor have just been passed under the noses of 100 people. There were even program fans used at balls. These had ivory slots that could be written on with a pencil. A lady would write the names of her dance partners on the fan itself, but erase the name and you have a perfect slate for passing temporary messages, messages that could be wiped away with a wet thumb in an instant. Gone. No evidence left behind. As the night wears on, the atmosphere in the ballroom changes. The air gets heavier. The candles burn low, dripping wax onto the floor. The playful flirtation of the early evening has turned into something deeper, more serious. The older women, the spies, and the matrons are tired. Their hands are cramping from holding these heavy jeweled objects for hours, but they do not let go. The fan is their armor. Without it, they are exposed. With it, they are untouchables. You can hear the sound of the room changing. The rustle of silk is slower now. The snapping of fans is less frequent. Swish, swish, a slow, hypnotic rhythm. It is the sound of 1,000 secrets being fanned into the air, swirling up to the ceiling, trapped in the smoke of the candles, never to be spoken aloud. The forbidden zone is a quiet place. It is a place where you watch and listen and say nothing. Just like the fan, you fold yourself up. You hide your true face. You wait.
We have spoken of the queens who held the fans, the lovers who signaled with them, and the spies who hid behind them. But what of the hands that made them? Behind every shimmering mother-of-pearl stick and every delicate silk leaf, there is a ghost. A fan was an object of immense luxury, yet it was born in cramped, dim workshops filled with dust. Tonight, We look at the invisible tragedy behind the beauty. We look at the painters who went blind painting roses they would never smell, and the carvers who breathed in the dust of empires. This is the story of the art and the cost of perfection. Let the music of the ballroom fade away completely. Let the chandeliers dim until they are gone. We are traveling to a different part of 18th century London, away from the palaces of Mayfair, down to the narrow, winding streets of the East End, or perhaps the crowded quarters of Paris near the Seine. It is quiet here, but it is not the quiet of rest. It is the quiet of intense concentration. Enter a small workshop. The windows are narrow, letting in only a weak, gray light. Candles are expensive, so the artisans must work while the sun is up. The air here is thick. It glitters. If you look at the sunbeams streaming through the window, you see millions of tiny particles dancing. This is not ordinary dust. This is the dust of mother of pearl. The carver sits at his bench, his shoulders hunched. He is covered in a fine white powder. It is in his hair, on his eyelashes, in the creases of his clothes. He looks like a statue carved from snow. He holds a piece of shell no thicker than a fingernail. With a tiny saw, he cuts intricate patterns, vines, birds, geometric shapes. Scrape, blow, scrape, blow. He must blow the dust away constantly to see his work, and with every breath he takes, he inhales the sharp, microscopic shards of shell. It was known as a dangerous trade. The dust settled in the lungs, creating a cough that never went away. But the result? A handle that glowed with the iridescent colors of the ocean, a deadly, beautiful object. Now, move to the corner of the room. Here sits the painter. He is likely young, for only the young have eyes sharp enough for this work. He is painting a fan leaf made of chicken skin. Do not worry, it is not actually the skin of a chicken. It is a very specific, high-quality parchment made from the skin of a young kid goat, treated until it is impossibly thin and smooth. It is translucent, like a clouded window. The painter is creating a scene of a garden party. There are 20 tiny figures in the painting. Each figure has a face, an expression, a hairstyle, and a costume, and the entire figure is smaller than a grain of rice. He uses a magnifying glass, holding it with one hand while he paints with the other. Dip, touch, lift. He cannot make a mistake. Vellum absorbs paint instantly. There is no erasing. The strain on the eyes was immense. Many fan painters lost their vision by the time they were 40. They traded their vision for the amusement of a lady they would never meet. But there is a strange peace in this work, too. Imagine the silence of the room. The only sounds are the scratching of the file and the soft dip of the brush in water. Time moves differently here. In the ballroom, time rushes by in a waltz. Here, time is measured in brushstrokes. It takes 3 days to paint a single rose. It takes a week to carve a single guard stick. The artisan pours his entire life, his breath, his patience into this object. Artists loved fans too, not just making them, but painting about them. Think of the great paintings of Velázquez or Renoir. Look closely at the portraits of noble women. The fan is never just an accessory, it is part of the composition. In a painting by Renoir, a woman holds a fan loosely in her lap. She looks away, dreamy, distracted. The fan is closed. It tells us she is resting, vulnerable, open to the world. In a portrait of Goya, a woman holds a black fan against her black dress, staring defiantly at the viewer. The fan is a barrier. It tells us she is strong, mysterious, unbreakable. The artists understood that the fan was an extension of the soul. It was the physical manifestation of a mood.
As the 19th century turned into the 20th, the tragedy of the fan deepened. The world began to speed up. Electric lights replaced candles. The soft, flattering glow that made fans so necessary for flirting was gone. In the harsh glare of electricity, the subtle signals were lost. Cars replaced carriages. Women needed their hands to open doors, to hold cigarettes, to work. The elaborate hand-painted fan began to die. The workshops in London and Paris began to close one by one. The dust settled. The tools were put away. The secret language was forgotten. Grandmothers put their fans in trunks in the attic, wrapped in tissue paper. The ivory turned yellow. The silk became brittle. The secrets whispered behind them faded into silence. But tonight, in our imagination, the workshop is still open. The carver is still blowing the white dust from the shell. The painter is still dipping his brush in blue pigment. The object is still alive. You can feel the ghost of their labor in the weight of the fan. It is not just wood and silk. It is time. It is patience. It is the breath of the past held in your hand, waiting to cool your cheek. And as you close the fan one last time, click, you close the door on a world that was slower, quieter, and infinitely more mysterious. The language is silent now. The dance is over.
And so we have reached the end of our journey. We have traveled from the golden light of the Victorian ballroom to the quiet mist of ancient Japan. We have heard the snap of the fan in anger and the soft rustle of silk in love. We have seen the spies in the shadows and the craftsmen in the dust. But now the ball is over. The last carriage has rolled away over the cobblestones. The musicians have packed away their violins. The candles in the great chandeliers have been snuffed out, one by one, until the room is wrapped in darkness. The fan, once so full of life and language, is folded shut. Click! Its painted leaves are hidden. Its secrets are locked away between the ivory sticks. It lies still on the dressing table, resting, just as you must rest. There is no more need for signals. There is no more need for words. The code is broken, and the silence that remains is not empty. It is peaceful. It is the silence of history, settling like soft dust over the world. Let your mind fold up its worries just as the fan folds up its silk, one by one, piece by piece, until everything is small, contained, and quiet. The air is still, the night is yours, you are safe in the darkness. Drift away now. The history is written, the story is done. Sleep, sleep, sleep.